My name's Vik.
My name's Shawn.
And thank you for tuning in to the Evexian Network. And this is a new podcast geared towards the pre-med lifestyle and basically medicine in general. So my friend Shawn and I wanted to create this podcast for the sole purpose of kind of expressing our own opinions and talking about the latest and greatest, inventions in the medical field. And Shawn will kind of be talking about why we chose the name Evexian Network.
So actually, me and Vik were kind of brainstorming. We're trying to come up with a really cool and catchy name. But turns out most people have already come up with all the names that we came up with. But by chance, I went into Google Translate and I chose Greek. And we kind of played around with some words and we turned out that Evexia in Greek means wellness. And I think that really encapsulates the purpose of our podcast here, to really overall understand why health and medicine applies to how we can become better, not only in terms of health, but also better as human beings. And that's really what we came out here to do.
And I think that both of us being pre-meds, we're always constantly focused on grades and all of our, ECs, but we kind of forget that medicine itself is all about healing. And I think, having a podcast where you can kind of center yourself again. And when you listen to this, you're like, wait a minute, I'm studying for this test, but in the future, I'll be able to make this impact in somebody's life. And I think that's the whole purpose of this, to empower pre-meds and, anybody around or interested in the medical field.
That's us, the Evexian Network, putting medicine back in pre-med.
Exactly. Now, with that said, as we are a new channel, we have so many ideas that we want to bring to you guys, but we just don't know exactly where to start. So with that said, I think right now we're in the process of wanting to focus on case studies and kind of encounter things like, if we were doctors or if we were in this position, what kind of diagnosis would we give? And kind of learn from those case studies. So you want to take it away, Shawn?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first case study segment of the Evexian Network. All right, let's go.
But you want to explain what a case study is for those viewers who don't know?
Oh, exactly. that's a good point. Thanks, Vik.
I'm here all day, bro.
Yeah, I know. I know. A case study is essentially one single particular instance of medicine that sort of might be really something that stands out in terms of the types of symptoms and the type of patient that comes in to a doctor, or is maybe a little bit unusual. But it's really a way to educate people about medicine, to learn more about health, and to ultimately learn more about how doctors do their jobs. And that's really the purpose of us including this case. So here it is. A 66-year-old woman presented to her family doctor in December with a 10-day history of explosive watery diarrhea.
Wait, do you say explosive?
That's the medical term.
What does that entail exactly?
I don't know. I don't think I want to know.
Fair enough.
This was accompanied by a fever and chills for 2 days, abdominal cramping, nausea, and poor appetite, but the kicker here is no rectal bleeding.
Wow. I mean, to have explosive diarrhea and no bleeding, that's quite the feat.
Oh, yes. I had a strong colon, that woman. There was a 16-pound weight loss over the previous 4 months. No recent travel or infectious contacts. She made some visits to a nursing home. The primary care doctor first prescribed her amoxicillin, the antibiotic, for a dental infection, but other than that, nothing. 14 months and 9 months ago, she had diarrhea about lasting 1 week, but it was never this serious.
So do you think that, based off of all these symptoms, let's say, this person came to our, doctor or clinic or whatever, would you say this is some sort of gastrointestinal disorder, or is it more, to the whole body kind of thing?
Well, I'm no doctor.
Disclaimer, we are not doctors. This is just an analysis kind of podcast.
We're going to be saying that many times during this show. But from my understanding, it doesn't seem like a normal gastroenteral infection.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's definitely bacterial, is my guess. But the diarrhea, and I'm not sure actually, if I'm being entirely honest.
Yeah, because there's so many different things that have these symptoms, and I think Just based off personal experience, like when I go to the doctor, and let's say I say, oh, I have nausea and vomiting, those are symptoms, but there's so many, potential ailments associated with that it's so hard for doctors to be like, oh, you have nausea. It could be a multitude of things. So I think one thing that we always have to keep in account is when we go to the doctor's office, I think we all expect answers right away. And we should, but at the same time, we have to realize that doctors themselves, although they go through so much training, they don't unfortunately have all the answers all the time.
Definitely. And there's so many cases where you go to a doctor and, you tell them your symptoms and then they don't know what it is. And you go to a different doctor, they tell you something completely different.
Yeah.
And it can be real frustrating because you think that, somebody who's gone through med school should know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But the truth is, doctors are human too.
Yeah.
And
we always have WebMD. As a backup.
Well, maybe that could be your primary care,
Oh, yeah.
Just
Anyway.
get that morning scare, every day.
Hypochondriac, yes.
So what's your guess on this before we head into the answer?
Boy. Could you repeat the short list of symptoms again?
Yeah, so it's mainly explosive, watery diarrhea.
Oh, boy.
Some vomiting, but no rectal bleeding, fever, chills, nausea, not vomiting, and poor appetite.
So, was there any sort of raspiness in her voice, such as acid reflux or anything like that?
No, none at all.
Did she have any problems with her throat?
No.
Like esophagitis?
She didn't report that to the PCP.
Okay.
And let's go through the labs too. Maybe there's some clues there. There's normal results for complete blood count, electrolytes, blood urea, nitrogen, creatinine, glucose, liver function, and everything seemed normal.
Wow, this is
So let's say if you were the doctor,
yeah,
what lab would you order next? What seems to be the next obvious choice?
So if the blood's perfectly normal, I definitely would look at perhaps like some sort of upper GI endoscopy just to make sure there's no like structural problems, such as a polyp forming or even Crohn's disease, something crazy like that.
Oh yeah.
So I mean that's one way. Or since it seems like it's associated with poop, simply put, I guess we could they could run some sort of like poop analysis if that's a thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And actually, you hit the nail on the head.
Really?
Yeah.
With poop.
As disgusting as it sounds, our poop actually has a lot of information about our body's health. We eat obviously like 3 times a day, preferably, and everything that you eat, everything that your body is trying to do to absorb it, the microbiome in your lower gut, the good bacteria, as they call it, in your gastrointestinal tract, tells you a lot about your health and what you eat, and it can be really informative, especially for physicians if they get a stool sample. And that's exactly what they did. They found the stool sample and they found, drumroll please, Clostridium difficile.
I have absolutely no idea what that is, but I'm guessing it's bacteria.
Yeah, it is. It's a bacterial infection, and it seems to be a rare strain because the usual antibiotics weren't working. Do you want to know what the real interesting part of this case
hold on,
was?
before we continue, I just gotta know, what does a poop analysis entail? Like how do they analyze the poop? Like do they smell it? How does like what's the experience like? Is it just like a bunch of people in white coats extracting poop and under a fume hood to make sure there's no smell? Like, is there any? I just can't imagine that picture. So do you have any idea of like exactly how that works?
Well, I think the first thing to understand is that you're not looking at a giant pile of poop. It's not like they asked for the entire dookie.
That's true. That's very
probably
true.
just a small sliver of that. But you're definitely looking for biomarkers of metabolism. You want to see certain things, like for example, you definitely don't want to see blood in the stool. You don't want to see fat. Because that indicates that you're
malabsorption.
Yeah, exactly. So your liver, your organs aren't emulsifying the fats the correct way. So you're just looking for certain markers, what should and shouldn't be there. But like I was saying, the interesting part. No, you're good. The interesting part of this treatment, this case, is actually the treatment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What do you think that? Just take a guess what the treatment might be. If antibiotics is out of the question.
You said antibiotics out of the way. I'm gonna guess they're not using like a revolutionary new antibiotic because the FDA is a whole different story. We can talk about that later in the future.
Oh yeah.
Can't imagine maybe like a stomach pump to get the bacteria.
Just a giant tire
vacuum.
Pump. Stick it through her mouth and go.
Yeah, that's definitely not.
No, that's
not medicine.
It's probably against HIPAA, probably.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Or not HIPAA. Was it Hippocrates?
Yeah, the Hippocratic Oath. Yes. Anyways, maybe they inject something, maybe some solution that the woman could drink. To help get rid of the bacteria. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's fair because the treatment is actually pretty novel. It's pretty out there too. It's actually something called fecal transplant.
Wait. You say transplant?
That's right.
Oh boy. So you mean you take someone else's poop, like their actual poop?
Yeah.
And you throw it in.
Exactly.
Oh god.
Whew. And for us normal folks, you couldn't think of any good reason for why you would want someone else's poop inside your lower gut. But I mean, the truth is, your gut bacteria are pretty powerful. You got all sorts of really necessary bacteria in terms of just digestion and overall health. If something goes wrong, it could cause some major problems, and that's what seems to have happened here.
Wow. That's once again, how do you image this fecal transplant going?
You know what I want to know? How did they discover this? Did somebody just decide? I want to see what happens if we put someone else's poop inside this patient's poop.
Here's my question. So I understand that this might be too expensive to do, but it's not the actual poop that I'm assuming that we're after, right? It's the nutrients, it's the bacteria inside the poop.
Yeah.
So is there any way to isolate those away from the poop so you're not directly just, transferring poop?
I'm not sure. That's a great question. I'm sure we can. I'm sure there's a way.
But it's probably more expensive and...
It could be more expensive, or it could be that one of the main reasons that I'm guessing is probably because everyone's gut flora is very different. So, identifying what exactly could be healthy for one person and what could
differ,
cause another type of infection for another is totally different things. So I'm sure that they considered that, but it seems like a transplant would be the easiest option, and go from there. If it doesn't work out, well,
I can also imagine just so many mutations happening. If you did take it and put it into a petri dish of some sort.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's that. Wow. So how common are these fecal transplants? Because I'm not that well aware with this.
Actually, I'm not either. It's very rare procedure for sure. So this case was taken from Canada. And it was one of the first fecal transplants done in the area that the woman was residing in. But it's definitely not something you see normally. And that could be a function of the stigma. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, if I were a patient, I wouldn't want someone else's poop within a 10-mile radius of me.
Yeah.
But in this case, it turns out that the patient was better immediately.
Really?
Yeah, it was a dramatic turnaround, and she's after a year of follow-up, she's totally fine. Never saw the infection ever again.
Wow. So, based on this success, I'm gonna pose a question. And do you think these things would be more popular? Having seen the success.
I mean, if I'm being honest, I'm hard pressed to say no. I think even for her, it's probably a last resort in terms of. I mean, she was prescribed all sorts of medication, but I would say that with more success cases, it could catch on.
So I'm actually hard pressed to say yes. I say this because you mentioned that there's so much antibiotic resistance going on, and I think that that's just like the next big crisis in medicine.
Definitely.
If it hasn't been a crisis already.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that idea of having that novel idea of having actual poop transplanted, and not relying on antibiotics as some sort of selection criteria, I think that definitely has a lot of implications. But I think once again, you're also right that how do you get over that stigma of saying poop is fine, it's not something disgusting, it's also medicinal.
Definitely.
So I think that's really tough. That's really tough.
It's tough, but I think we need these sort of creative solutions
Yeah.
if we want to solve problems like antibiotic resistance.
Yeah, definitely. So what was the outcome of all of this?
The outcome, the patient did fine.
So was there any follow up, like even like 5 years, 10 years, or was it just?
Oh no, I think the treatment was so successful they didn't even bother.
Wow.
Interestingly.
That's a lot of food for thought.
A lot of poop for
yeah,
thought.
a lot of food for thought. But wow, okay. Interesting. All right. Well, this was our first case study, analysis, and I gotta say we definitely started things off with a bang. Poop is quite the subject, and I hope we don't scare away our viewers.
No, definitely. I hope we caused a big stink here today.
Okay. Anyway, you're not a comedian by any means. Just stick to pre-med, my friend. Stick to pre-med.
Okay.
But thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. And if you have any ideas of what upcoming podcasts you'd like to see, maybe it's the day in the life of a pre-med, like the pre-med schedule. Maybe some new alternative theory. We can talk about CRISPR-Cas9, which is genetic editing.
Oh yeah, that's
so
new.
I actually work with CRISPR-Cas9.
Oh, good for you.
I'm a pretty decent resource for this.
You'd be surprised how often he throws that around.
No. It's just in interviews.
And parties sometimes.
Yeah, so we can party on the weekends. But yes, thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us. This is Shri.
And this is Vic.
Signing out.